I'm Olivia Clementine, and this is Love and Liberation. Today, our guest is Drukmo Gyal. Born into a family of Ngakpas, Drukmo grew up in Repkong in the culturally rich Amdo region, Tibet. Drukmo studied traditional Tibetan medicine and continued her studies working for Sowa Rigpa, Estonia, and studying under Dr. Nida Chinatsang. She has produced 5 albums of Tibetan healing, mantras, and prayers. Currently, she serves as an international teacher for Sowa Rigpa International and as the lead organizer of Sowa Rigpa International Estonia to bring this ancient wisdom to the Baltic states and Nordic areas. You were born in Amdo in northeastern Tibet, a place where many Buddhist schools and traditions have thrived, and you were raised in a Ngakpa family. And what did that mean for you? Like, what practices or activities were you engaged with as a child of a Ngakpa family?
As a child in a Ngakpa family, the first thing that you see, I mean, as a child, I didn't know it was unique, but your grandpa or your uncle has a dreadlock. And then you go out and you see that other males don't have it. And as a child, you might not have the intelligence to question that, but then you still feel you felt the difference. And also in terms of lifestyle, you see, like I saw my grandpa, my uncles who had the dreadlocks always retreating. So they had loads of days in a year where they sit in a, mm, I don't know what they're doing, but they're always inside that little hut or that little room. And whenever they're gone, then kids would peek in to see what's inside those secret places. And of course, the adults will always warn us to be away from the practice spaces like that because they're scared that maybe we will spill the mantra water or the substances inside, maybe some offerings. And yeah, it was part of like observing the process of adults in the family in their personal practices. As a child, I don't have kind of active questions to ask, but I definitely felt the importance of life itself. For example, all the animals in the family, the livestock, the sheep and yaks, as well as pigs. My family had pigs and donkey, and they all had their own names. And we had over 100 sheep when I was a kid, and each one had their own names depending on what color of fur they had and where the kind of spot, the black spot is positioned in their body. So they all get their nicknames or names, and it's just like all the kids in the family. So I didn't feel that there was a difference between our family stocks and kids. Like if I look at my grandmother, my aunties, and my mother, when they take care of livestock and kids, they do exactly the same manner. So they feed us, they feed the animals, and then we're all in the yard, kind of eating, munching our own things. And it was also, I think, growing up in that community or in that kind of atmosphere taught me a lot. Just inherently, lives are kind of somewhere it's the same. So one side is about like this vegetarianism. Maybe people will be thinking, oh, protect animals. The other side is like we didn't grow up as vegetarianism. We still ate meat, but also I didn't think that I am better or worse than the animal that I'm eating because one day my body also will be eaten by the vultures. So it's kind of like a echo. I admit that I'm just the same animal as being eaten as I am eating. and I don't see the difference to position myself outside of that ecosystem.
Yeah. And so growing up then, were your grandfather was away for periods, and then during the days, were you doing practices as a family, like in the morning and evenings, or was there some integration of dharma in your everyday life in that way actively as a child, or were you too young? Did they not involve you as much when you were?
I think the kids were always involved in the space, but not involved in the practice forcefully. And the kids have their own attention span. I don't think as a kid I had the attention span to chant the whole ritual with adults, but I definitely was requested to be around, to be nearby. And what I could remember is that I was taught few mantras as a kid, and I was told to chant these mantras at different occasions. For example, when the elders saw me playing with small animals, ants and insects, then they would tell me if I accidentally step onto an ant or insects, then I should immediately chant 3 times a Vajra mantra. So that has been a very prominent memory I can recall. And also, I think Omani Pemehom has been always there. Nobody really taught me, oh, this is the mantra of Avalokiteshvara, but it was everywhere. Like you live in that community, and you will hear it chanted by different people. So I just picked it up in the environment. Yeah. And also the other one is prostrations and circumambulation. I think these two are more active and kid friendly. So we were able to imitate the adults or like walk with them. So that has been something more prominent. And you hear chanting, like I wake up to chanting voices, and I go to sleep with chanting voices, because different family members do their practices in different times. Some are like morning people, so they do it early morning. Some are night people, so they do it before they go to sleep. So I would definitely hear some kind of chanting voice or some kind of sliding, the prostration sliding sound in the mornings and evenings.
Mm. And so your grandfather was your teacher, and what was that relationship like?
I think he has been the teacher of the whole family, not so personal, like, oh, he is my teacher.
Yeah.
He was generally there, and he has like, I don't know, 12 kids, 4 passed away, 8 survived, and among the 8 kids, there many grandchildren were produced. So I think he has some 15 grandchildren, and I'm one of them. Yeah. So I guess him chosen to live a Ngakpa life has been the first teaching I received, because it's not like every male in the community has to become a Ngakpa. It's also a personal choice, and he decided to become a Ngakpa in his late 30s and throughout his life until he passed 2 years ago. So over 50 years of Ngakpa-ship, Ngakpa life. I think that has been definitely, if I'm asked what is dedication, then I can only relate to his life and his experiences.
Like in what ways was he dedicated? What did you see?
I see that because when you keep a Ngakpa lifestyle, you have to cut off a big chunk of your yearly days or weeks into spiritual practice. But it means that you lose a lot of time to improve the material condition of the family. And it means that you have to agree that your material life will be not improving as your spiritual life. And this kind of understanding is very deep. It comes in a hard way, and your mind and your decisions have to be challenged with mundane things again. And how can you keep that schedule for the rest of your life? I think that is some dedication, I would say, because especially when the families have more males, and more people, not only males and females, who are able to improve material life by going out to work, to earn money, then you will see the difference between families in the similar communities or in the similar regions. And of course, these things are externally manifested in front of you, and then they will bring questions to you. And why are you doing this with your life? And instead of improving the life quality, which is very to the nose tip. So even before he passed away, that year, I remember he was telling me that if I couldn't get back, it was during the COVID year, he told me we were on the cell phone. Whenever my mom goes to visit him in the village, then I would ask her to call me, so I would be able to speak with grandpa on the cell phone. And he told me that he's probably leaving next year. If I come back, then I'll see him. If I don't, then this might be our last video call. And I mean, he has been saying similar things like that before, but never this firm. But I still felt lightly about it. I thought, oh yeah, of course he's getting old, so he's just preparing himself. But it was exactly what he expressed. So the following year he passed, and I remember him telling me, my last words for you is very clear: don't run after money, and make sure you do your practices. And like true, we say true Damba, the dharma is most important, or the jewel of life. So that was his last teaching for me. Yeah.
And how has that impacted since he passed?
I think it has such a deep impact that I don't have words to wrap around at the moment. I'm still navigating my personal life on this last word. Like, how can I balance between material life and spiritual life? Is it wrong to maintain a good level of comfortable level of material life while keeping spiritual life? And sometimes it's a yes answer, sometimes a no answer. So I'm still kind of seesawing it. Yeah, I think what at the moment what came out from this teaching is the speed of living my life. I think many people I know around my circle, when they realize that they can do something, they definitely do it in a relatively fast speed, because they have to catch up with the market, the possible changes in the market. So everything is very fast. So it can be such a strong force to me. And when I feel this kind of hit, then I remember what my grandfather told me, and I would tell myself that it's better I slow down. The slower I go, the faster I would get to the place where I wish to get. Because with the slower speed, I can ensure physical health, mental health. I can ensure healthy relationships with myself and others. I think this type of speed and holistic care would allow me to have energy and space to practice dharma in a longer kind of period of time.
You're the seventh generation practitioner, and I'm wondering, as you carry on your lineage or carry on what authentic dharma means to you, what do you feel are the most important pieces that you want to carry on in this lifetime due to modernity and how challenging and fast changing things are right now?
I haven't thought about this question this way. I think most important Dharma principle is integrating impermanence, or letting the mind understand the existence of impermanence is pervasive. And this is one important Dharma teaching. And the other Dharma teaching, equally important, is interconnectiveness, the Tandil. So I think These two are tricky and very profound principles that I keep in my daily life when I do things, think, or connect. Then the foundation to carry out these principles would be compassion. And then somehow the connection between compassion and these principles will result into wisdom. So this kind of wisdom accumulation is something that I find meaningful as ma, or what I have learned from my grandparents, parents, and other teachers and elders that I have contact in this life. And then by the time I age, I hope I can age like them in different ways. Some of them age spiritually rich. Some of them age physically rich, like they are very well taken. They spent a lot of energy and time to take care of their health. I think this is equally important as taking care of spiritual growth, because my connection or my studies with my Tibetan medicine studies help me kind of construct another layer to the dharma that I'm connected to or exposed to as a child. Because when I was a child, the dharma that I was exposed to is rather religious. There can be the shadows of dogmatism, and there can be also very strong opposition or like opposing factors to where you can see like this strong dualism. Those are very helpful period of education as a child. I think I definitely need to learn what is so-called right or wrong in a samsaric or in a dualistic setting in order to understand where I position the right and the wrong, so-called right and wrong, and then I can understand that a spectrum can be applied from the so-called right and so-called wrong. This kind of family religious context helped me to establish a very strong sense of right and wrong. Can be dogmatic, can be very religious, so-called religious, yeah. And studying Tibetan medicine helped me to see the freedom or the methods to get some kind of spectrum in these rights and wrongs that I have learned in early time. Yeah.
It's really interesting. I've never thought about it that way, how Tibetan medicine can open your mind rather than being so dogmatic. Will you give an example? I'm curious.
The simplest example is in medicine, you will not think in terms of poison and medicine, because poison is medicine and medicine is poison. It's really depending on the dosage and when you take, how much you take, and what you take. So which part of the substance you take and who is taking. So all these factors already give you a much more space to kind of play around and do the right thing in that situation. For that context, I think also I did a master's degree in cultural anthropology during the COVID years. And when I was exposed to anthropology as a discipline, I was also very kind of inspired by how a social science discipline trying to be as objective as it can present itself to be, and a human body mind as the tool, the medium to express that objectiveness. And that embodied kind of academic experience or that perspective is somehow inspiring and also connecting to my personal views or connection with my kind of Ngakpa family education as well as the Tibetan medicine studies. because it talks a lot about context. It talks about qualitative studies instead of quantitative studies. And the so-called qualitative studies, you go through that maybe you're researching only one person or one thing, one item, but through this person or this non-human entity, you're able to kind of see the web that is around it. So this is a very similar view to Sowa Rigpa or Tibetan medicine that I have experienced, because when you see that this medicine can be a poison or this poison can be a medicine depending on the specific context or specific case, then it becomes like, oh, then I cannot just say yes or no or good or bad to judge this whole situation. I have to have a bigger kind of mental space for other conclusions and questions to exist, to coexist.
Now you are very global. You're based in Estonia, and you said some things around community, around growing up in Amdo, and wondering if now that you're not in that region where you grew up with, now you go visit, right? If you appreciate things around community living, like ways that you were raised where community supports each other, such a huge piece of well-being is having community and depending on each other. And I'm wondering now that you're kind of away from your home on a regular basis, if you see it more clearly and kind of see the ways that community exists there that maybe you appreciate more or not. Both, I would love to hear.
I think having a community as a child somehow trained me the ability to create community wherever I go. So I actually never had a doubt that when I moved to a new place, I would be feeling alone. And I also never questioned about it. So until sometime a few years ago, I remember somebody was asking me, like, oh, how can you always have friends everywhere? And I suddenly stopped and thought to myself, oh, yeah, true. Like, it seems I'm always very open. I like helping people. And also, it seems people who I'm exposed to, they're also mutually interested to bond. And yeah, somehow I didn't have the thought or the doubt or the fear of not being able to have a community. And also, I think firstly, it's the mindset. When you don't worry about it, it comes more naturally. And I'm not calculating, oh, I want a community this way, that way. Like I don't calculate. I just, okay, I expose myself. Okay, whatever community comes around, I welcome. Just like in the village, yeah, like you don't expect everybody to behave certain way, then you're happy in this community. It doesn't work that way. You just embrace the community the way they are, and you also adjust yourself to fit into the community. And when you don't want to adjust yourself, then you can distance from the community in your own ways. And it's about having this boundary, the ability to set boundaries, the ability to kind of, like, literally speaking, refusing and saying no, and also the ability to explain with clarity, the communication skills. I think these needs training. And for me, growing in village community, family community, later school community, of course I have gone through all kinds of miscommunications, misunderstandings. It's a normal part of growing up. Just every misunderstanding needs some kind of solution. What I learned is that I should not use the same reaction that I did previously and then feel only bad about it. So next time when the same similar kind of situation happens or recurs, then I would kind of brave enough to try another solution and see the result. So only by trying different like kind of solutions, I find more confident in myself and my skills to build community, so-called. Like I'm not thinking that way that time, but if I analyze myself now from distance, then it feels like that.
Also, going back to a piece that you shared about the body being as important as spiritual practice, the physical health being important for spiritual practice, where does that fit in terms of like, for you creating boundaries or relating well, taking care of oneself while also being available to others? How have you come to exist with a healthy relationship between the two?
I think they exist mutually. They can coexist, and I don't see them as opponents. That's first thing. And when I say no, because in dharma practice also we have three types of Buddha images. We have peaceful Buddhas, we have wrathful Buddhas, we also have joyful Buddhas. So it really depends on what kind of energy you embody yourself in resolving the problem. Because some problems, they have the nature of pacification, so they are easy to be pacified. Then very gentle approach is favored, and also you see that it works that way. And I've tried many different small experiences to see which one works better. I'm not always succeeding. Sometimes I fail, sometimes I don't. And when I fail, I just ruin that relationship in that time. And it's better I don't go back and disturb the other person more. Instead, I should just keep distance, set the boundary, because I think setting boundary and space for the other and myself when mistakes or the misunderstandings can seem to be more difficult to be resolved in the time, then giving space and time is the best treatment. And as a living human being, I don't have to have a great relationship with every human being I meet in life. It's not the goal of my life anyway. We all appear into the lives of each other, and we are naturally living our life, and then because of this interwoven network of invisible karma, we just sometimes hurt each other, sometimes help each other. I think it's not very fruitful to be thinking that, oh, I have bad image in somebody's brain, or I have bad connection with somebody. Everybody does, and it's okay. In Tibetan medicine, we say that, oh, we have a terminology, we say Dzomba mitam. Like in Dzomba is elements, like me is negation, ten is like compatibility. So the elements are not compatible. So it's like a reality, we are born with karma. That's why the 5 elements in our body are in different proportions. And sometimes people who have more fire just cannot coexist in the same space with somebody who has also strong fire. They would just burn each other. Boom, boom. So it's good to just keep some distance and hello, ciao. Why not,
Yeah, I love that description and just like how impersonal it is. It also maybe says a lot about you. Like it sounds like you're not someone that takes things so personally, or is that true?
I took things personally for many, many years and many times. I think I got better in not taking things personally, and I also got better in creating mental thought loop to help me get out of this, like, oh, my ego got hot, like feels hurt. Yeah. Like I still feel the ego hurt, of course, but I can enjoy my ego hurt and my ego massage. Sometimes it's being massaged, I enjoy. Sometimes I'm hurt, then I created this whole mental kind of like thought loop telling myself, oh, Ndrumo, you're hurt because this. So all the Dharma talks will come in.
What's one loop that comes in that you find
In
yourself returning to help you?
I think most immediate practice I do is the pain or the discomfort I'm feeling is light, is actually a form of energy. And I'm, because of my inner poison, so-called, yeah, because of my like awareness limitation, I'm experiencing it in the form of pain. But actually it's light. It's exactly how I feel with ego massage. It should be like, oh. And just in this moment, I'm experiencing it otherwise. But when I'm experiencing this nice massage or this pain, I always tell myself, oh, this is the light. This is the energy. It's like you eat a bread and the bread give you calories. And also like things we hear, things we think also gives those kind of energetical calories. And those energetical calories definitely manifest in different emotions.
Do you consider yourself a Ngakma?
Yes.
And so tell me, for you, like, what does that entail then? So, because you don't have dreadlocks, and
Yes.
tell me what.
I think I have not dreadlocks yet. Yeah, it's an interesting arena since Ngakpa has more like in the Ngakpa tradition, male has more prominent kind of dressing code, so the dreadlocks are also more prominent in the in among males. Among females, less prominent, but there are Ngakmas who leave dreadlocks, especially after long retreats in the wilderness. But there is not a very unified dressing code for ngakmas. And for example, I see that in Nepal area, some of the ngakmas they dress very similarly to male ngakpas. They dress like red underneath, and then they have the white and red scarf, the robe. And in like some regions, the lower skirt is completely white. Some regions, the lower skirt is red. However, inside Tibet, some parts women dress similarly like that. Some women prefer to dress in Tibetan robes, like the common summer or winter robes, but in the similar color, in this maroon, red maroon, like darker red color. And then they would add this white and red shawl, yogi shawl. So the hair is also not unified. Some would braid in one like me. Some would braid two braids, but generally braiding is a common thing that Ngakmas would do. Yeah.
Growing up, were you around other Ngakmas that you were inspired by or made an impression on you?
I think as a child, I didn't have the understanding of Ngakpa or Ngakma. I just knew everybody in the family were doing their own practices. I didn't think about identity because or Ngakma for me is just a lifestyle. It's not an identity. And now, when you ask me if I identify as a Ngakma, I say yes because I think here identity is such a hot topic that everybody is seeking for some kind of collection of identities. And then with these collection of identities, then they feel they're self-constructed. I probably come from a very different approach to this. So I say yes just to fit into that narrative. But in fact, I don't see it as a identity. I see it as a lifestyle. So in the lifestyle, when I live in a non-Tibetan context, definitely the way how I practice the Ngakma lifestyle is different from the way how my mother would do. But something similar is I would keep like shrine in the house. I would keep offerings to the shrine on a daily basis. And when I do practice, I have practices that are in the morning sessions or evening sessions, but depending on the seasons, I change my practices a bit. So this is also a bit like a personal. You can see how you can do. And then another thing I do is I take time off to do retreats, depending on the year. Since I'm still pretty young, I have more interest and also more attempted to do temptations. Yeah, more temptations to be engaged in like activities. And that process definitely eats up a lot of time to do retreat, but I still keep the fact that I do at least once or twice retreat a year so that I keep this retreat habit annually. And then the other aspect is this lojung, like this mental exercise that I integrate. I internalize Buddhist concepts because sometimes I think Buddhist concepts are okay, you're introduced to a concept, but you just know the concept, but if you haven't eaten it and chew it and swallow it and becomes your bodily constituents and shit it out, you somehow like your relationship with this concept is not so pervasive. So I think that part, like for example, the concept of impermanence and concept of this interdependence has been around my life since childhood, but my connection, my reading of it is definitely evolving every few years. Yeah.
Yeah, I so appreciate that. And you're saying too that changing your practice seasonally is different for you than it is for your mother. Is that what you mean?
I think I do some changes seasonally because of my work schedule. My mother doesn't have this part of challenge. So she is definitely doing a lot more chanting and a lot more repetition in her daily life. I think this part is also because she has now her kids are adults and she doesn't have samsaric kind of responsibilities. So it allows her to do those practices. And I imagine myself to also also reach there at certain point, to be more relaxed and then focus on spiritual practice. So in order to reach that balance, I think one side is to keep myself healthy, and if I have a lot of work, then I shouldn't stress myself adding up hours of practice. I should understand the importance of balance. And otherwise, I go into this like I need both, I do both, and then I can't balance. What do I do? Okay, something more. I learn how to organize my life, and then you add up one more thing. It's like how we are always dealing with sickness. Like we feel sick, and then instead of resting and do nothing, we think we need to do something about it. We need to eat more. Yeah, sometimes doing nothing about it helps to heal much better.
The way you're reflecting on where you are in your life around, like what you said about your age. I have a lot of energy right now, a lot of temptations. I'm not yet in the place of fully settling into a practice lifestyle or a non-samsaric daily, everyday lifestyle. And then what you just said about recognizing that, of course, ideally you practice as much as you do your worldly activities, but that's also not where you are. And I'm wondering too that how you came to this moment of accepting where you are and being, because it's actually quite a big deal, right? Because so
Yeah.
many of us spend our days wishing that we were in this more idealistic place and not being able to really inhabit where we actually are karmically or for whatever's happening in our life. So I'm wondering for you how it's come to be that you've settled
I
into
think,
this.
yeah, I think first it's also about community. I think in the community as a child, I never worried about not being accepted. I can be as naughty as annoying as I can be, but I get my spanks. I get the scolds, but I will still get my favorite snacks, and I will still be allowed to enter, and I will not be excluded into the list from the list. So there has never been kind of like exclusion experience. I think that had been a very important part of my self-acceptance practice. And then the other thing, as we discussed about identity, I don't think I have gone through the identity politics growing up. I had definitely had my identity crisis, but more in the context of like cultural and heritage, when I'm exposed to communist schools and like religion or not religion, like this kind of paradox I definitely experienced. Especially when I started learning Chinese, I speak Chinese, then my village people will be like, "Oh, you little Chinese girl." And then I was like, "No, I'm not Chinese." And there has been like this kind of insecurity. Mm, but after that experience, I didn't have this complex identity politics experience. So I just had settled down with the identity crisis that I had in junior high, senior high, and then I was exposed more to Buddhism, for example, the teaching of my perfect teacher, Gonzalo Michelon. And that book, when I deeply read and practice and think when I was in my last year of, I think, high school, first year of uni. That period, I was reading that book and getting also audience with local monks and nuns to ask questions. And that process definitely helped a lot in resolving my identity crisis. But when it resolved my self like this identity crisis, the main method was actually acceptance. I didn't have solutions to it. I just had I just felt acceptance from whoever asked questions or whoever I feel I expose myself to, because I was also kind of scared to expose myself to everybody, only to certain people that I feel I can trust. And when I do trust, then the feedback was rather positive. So those definitely gave me good experiences and faith to move on that direction. And when coming back to the question, I think this self-acceptance comes from this community and the experiences that I was exposed to. And I don't equal myself to the identities that are out there. So when there's like a musician, I don't require myself to be the musician that I imagine to be, or like everybody imagines to be, because I know for me to be singing mantras and to be presented as a musician has a very specific reason. It is essentially for introducing Sowa Rigpa, introducing Tibetan medicine culture, introducing like mantra, the philosophy behind mantra. And this is my main part. And musical part is beautiful. I very much appreciate and connect with it. But it's a part that I feel connection, and I would like that connection to slowly evolve. I don't need to quickly feel urgent in, I don't know, in playing instruments or singing different singing techniques, and because there are so many checklists that we create in order to fit into certain identity. And I think those parts are framing ourselves. And I had always this easier understanding of self-acceptance, but I didn't have much training in critical thinking. And that I discovered during my master years. During my master years, then the training is much more emphasized on critical thinking. You have to question, you have to question. And then I read the article, I'm like, I don't know what to question. I don't know enough to bring up what kind of questions. And also what I just spoke about, identity politics, these are all knowledge from the master years. Like when I think back about my life, then I was like, oh, okay, so I was going through that inner journey, and then now I'm looking at myself from distance, from an anthropological kind of perspective, and then reading myself again. So I was like, oh, these were the differences.
In your
Yes.
chanting or singing, what was it that you started to turn your attention more towards mantra? How did your voice, offering the wisdom through mantra and chanting come to be? Is it from younger years or was it later?
I have always enjoyed singing, but everybody sings in the community. So it's not something unique when you sing in the community. And my mother never thought that like it was something special. Yeah, everybody sang. And I remember during junior high and senior high years, because of this identity crisis that I was going through, I was more drawn to emotional songs that portray rebellious kind of atmosphere, lyrics, or like sad, very melancholic, or very, very happy, euphoric. And when I do listen to this kind of songs, I felt exhaustion from listening to these songs, exhaustion from experiencing those emotions. So I had a very clear understanding that these emotions are same as I did like 4 laps of running. So I had to kind of limit myself from the type of music that I listen to. So I cut down a lot on the input, audio input. Instead, I mean, if you cut down, then you had some free time. So I remembered some chanting of my family. Also, like there's a chanting of my mother's teacher in my home. So it's on the outer recorded into a small kind of a radio thing, so it plays 24 hours, so I hear it for years and years, so I know that melody. It's a money melody, so it goes like Om mani padme hum shi. Om mani padme hum shi. Like that. So it just goes on and on, and somehow it's in the memory. So I thought, okay, I just sang it, and then I felt more relaxed. Then it kind of started. I started singing Vajra mantra, but not to outside. It was just for myself. I just sing. When I'm alone somewhere sitting or, just bathing the sun or reading some book, I want to rest for a while, then I would chant and just bathe in that. I somehow understood that that was one of the things I could do to calm down my mind. Then it went on off like that for some years. In 2011, I met my teacher, Dr. Nida Chenatang, and he inspired me to go into the direction of Tibetan medicine, which at that moment I did not have any plan to touch medicine. But I'm very grateful that he has pointed me to that direction, because that time I had, I think, the generic view over medicine, like, oh, I'm not planning to be a doctor, so why would I study medicine? But in fact, my journey with Tibetan medicine definitely proves that thought wrong, because even if we are not planning to become healers, doctors, we have a body and a mind to take care of. So we should have some basic understanding of health and health philosophy, to take good care of ourselves. If this body is so precious, then we should also learn to take care of this precious body. And that kind of realization came through by years of connecting with Sowa Rigpa studies. And in 2013, 14, again, my Dr. Nida asked me to do more retreats and practices, which involved a lot of healing mantras. And then he asked me to sing a melody for the 5 element mantra. And then I thought, okay, I went to a retreat and some melody came to my mind. And then I just recorded it with my phone, because I don't know how to read and write musical notes. It's all by ears. Somehow, Dr. Nida liked that melody and encouraged me to sing it and record it in a studio. I was quite against that idea, because traditionally speaking, we have this kind of like very limited view on like presenting dharma in the form of art. And it's like very traditional. People in my village would think that I'm not respecting dharma, or I'm doing this like a performance and da da da. So I also had that view back then. And it was Dr. Nida who told me that Dharma itself is an art, and this form of art needs different ways of presenting itself to serve different groups of people. You cannot say Dharma is only for Tibetans. You have to understand that people from different cultural background needs different form of art to accept and connect to this Dharma. Then I think after that, I felt a little bit more encouraged to do so, but it took me some years to actually internalize this and really believe that this is fine to do. Yeah.
And now, do you play at all in your home country? Have you offered any music there?
Yeah, I did actually. It was very interesting experiences. Once I was invited to a friend's concert and he asked me to sing two songs. And I said, is it okay if I sing one mantra, one folk song? He says, yes. So I did it. And I was a bit worried that people might react negatively, or would say strange things, but people were quite receptive. It was in Repkong. It was in this place where Ngakpa culture is very prominent, and there were at minimally 200 people live, and mostly all of them were Tibetans and some monks and nuns as well. And I was very happy that they were receptive of it. And they were asking me afterwards, like, oh, what is this mantra about? And, it was a very good experience. And then the other time, I was invited to a friend's birthday party, and he wanted me to sing a blessing. And I did a prayer, and then I tried to explain the prayer. And then I remember two Tibetan males were really angry that I spoke about Dharma over like a seemingly entertainment setting. So one guy just started like banging the table, and the other guy was like standing up and was like really showing this discomfort and anger. And And then I cut short, but I still did the blessing, the singing. I wouldn't say it's a patriarchal. Patriarch is a very specific setting and specific word. I sometimes feel like when scholars and people say that Tibet is patriarchal, it might not be very accurate, because I know many families are matriarchal families. So it really depending on family to family. It's a case to case situation. It's not like generic phenomena, but definitely the Chinese have a very strong like male over female history, and I also wouldn't use the word patriarchal to that. It again implies a very different kind of feeling to it. So let's say that they had this very strong view that only male can inherit the family name, and then so females are less valued in the family, and so on and so forth. I sometimes wonder if that has been an influence to the Tibetan communities in my region, because we are very close to the border. We're the frontiers, so-called Tibet and China. So we are very close, and we had the Silk Road, and we definitely had a lot of interaction with outside of Tibet. That reason, I sometimes wonder if like these different views have impacted the way how the gender kind of settings or the power dynamic is presented the way it is nowadays. Like most of the Dharma talks or the Dharma events are delivered by male presence. So when a female does that, it definitely creates a very strange feeling in male. It might hurt their ego, might challenge their authority in some kind of form, or the way how they perceive Dharma to be presented. And interestingly, like there are dakinis or kandromas in the Tibetan community. When these kandromas are like presented, also some regions are very receptive, some regions are not at all. So it's a very case to case kind of situation. Yeah.
When you were growing up, what was it like being a woman practitioner? What was it like just seeing the women around you?
I think my speaking of my grandmother, she didn't have as much time to do retreats. She was being the tsamyok, the retreat assistant to my grandfather for as long as I can remember. She had 8 children to take care of, and she had to be bounded with what we call samsaric life. But sometimes I recall her life and I feel that was her practice. That's why I also don't limit myself to the so-called Dharma practice in the Dharma, in the way how Dharma practitioners perceive Dharma practice should be done. Like I don't have to always do Dharma practice in the format of chanting, rituals, or like specific hours, and mechanically do my practice. And oh, if I don't do, then I go to Vajra hell. I think as long as your mind is Vajra mind, it's already said that chanting one time of the mantra is same as 1,000, but the belief is inside your head. If you believe it is one time equals to 1,000, but if you have doubt, then you have to work on that doubt. Yeah, let's say you are taking care of 8 kids, and you know you don't have a 25th hour to do the practice that you promised to do, and then in your faith you really have faith in all the practice you do, so you can say that okay, Mbanzar Satohom made this mantra be equal to 1,000 that I need to do today, and that's it. But you can't cheat. You can only do it in when it's necessary. But when it's necessary, you cannot lie to yourself. It has to be applied into those situations. And you have to feel comfortable and trust. You have to have that inner trust. Yeah. I think this is most important. And I think grandmother definitely did that part. She did her practice, her Dharma practice, and she was the first one who actually gave me a sex education. I would say. Of course, she would not think that way, but one day I was walking with her from the summer house to the winter house. My maternal mother's village is in the border of a nomadic and kind of agricultural landscape. So all the families in that region has two kind of housings. The winter housing is much better and agricultural, and the summer housing is about 3-4 kilometers far, and it's already like grassland. So we have less comfortable housing, but our animals are there. So during the summer months we go there, but some of our animals are in the winter's house, so we need to go once a day back and forth to feed the animals. One time after feeding the winter house animals, we were going back to the summer house with grandmother. Only she and me that day. I think my parents dropped me off because they needed to do something somewhere. So we walked and we got tired and we sat down somewhere. And then she picked up a flower. I don't know the name of the flower in Latin, but this flower looks like the witch hat, with a long tail, and it's purple. And on one stem there are a few flowers like that which grows, and so she picked up one of those flowers, and then she broke two flowers, and she inserted the pointy part of the flower into the mouth of the flower. So she put it inside, it fits in. So like two hats like fitting in like this. And she said, look, this is called a which means this is the sexholic flower. And then I was like, I mean, I did not know the action of sexual intercourse, so I had no picture in my brain to relate to. But I remembered that the name of that flower and the action of my grandmother. And then after some months, I remember asking this question to mother, and she got shocked where I heard this word. And then I was explaining to her what grandmother told me, and then she was laughing. And then she said, oh, you're a kid, you don't know this. But of course, when she rejected telling me, I have more curiosity about it. So not soon after, I got my answer from other kids. So that was a very interesting experience. I think like later I recall this memory, something I would be sure is that she didn't have any shame when talking about this. And this was actually very important teaching for me, because as I grew up, I think too much shame education has been given to me relating to sex or sexual related topics, like so many taboos, so many things. It was, I don't know whether it's Tibetan or Chinese or whatever, because I go to school and there are Chinese, there are Tibetans, and like also among my friends, there are different ethnics, there are Muslims, Uyghurs, and I can't say this comes from specific source, but all of us had the similar type of shame over sexuality. Also, very few sources where this kind of topic would be put onto the table and discussed. So it was all kind of underground and just thinking myself. And now, if I relate back to these memories, I definitely feel I had the best sex education I could from her, not having shame about sexuality.
I do wonder what happened between your grandmother's generation now to your generation around sex education or understanding of sex, how that's changed in that period of time.
I remember a story from the cultural anthropologist in Tibet. Her name is Pema. She primarily writes in Chinese, and her book, her most recent book, is called, I think, if I translate it, it's called The Gift of Nomads. I think she went to Nachu area, and lived there for many years to do field work. And during the field work, she was looking at how gifting culture among the nomads, and how this is kind of shedding light to the social structure of nomads there. And I remember very clearly one story she shared in that book is she know this married couple, but before they got married, the man actually had a lover, but family didn't agree, so he married another woman. So they are married, but he still sometimes goes to the lover. And one time the lover gifted a scarf or something to the husband, and the husband was wearing it. And somehow the wife also knows that it's a gift from the lover. And the wife went to the riverside to wash, and then met the lover, who also came to wash. And then the wife thanked the lover. Thank you for the gift. I think he really enjoys it. So it was like this very harmonious kind of personal relationship. Like when it becomes, when we speak about love, I think romantic relationship always has this very inclusive and exclusive features. But Bema is saying that what she experienced in nomadic culture, love is love. It does not have to. It's not mutually exclusive. That it's a bit too complex, of course. Like I'm not saying that I agree. People can have affairs like that, but to have, it's not even. He's not having an affair. He's sharing love. And she is sharing love, and this love is being accepted in that cultural context. So it really depends on the cultural context and the social common sense to have such harmony existence. And then I thought of my own family, like my mother is the second wife of my father, and the first wife of my father, I call her Amako, like mother, and I never knew that she was my father's ex-wife until I turned 16, because my father would always take me, my mother, to her family, and then we would always spend all the Losar together, like all kinds of celebrations. I remember like every few weeks we would be spending time together. So I never thought it was like something awkward, or I never felt like she was excluding me because I was the daughter of the current wife, and she treats me exactly same as other kids, her own kids. And so I never like imagined that she would be the ex-wife. But they divorced, but she also got married, remarried, and she had her family, my father had his family, and they would always gather. And in the last years of my father, also my Amako, the ex-wife, would come and help my mother. And it was like it was harmonious love. Like I don't see, I remember my father telling me that he said to me, he said, nomad men and nomad women, they have less jealous. Which I thought, oh, very interesting. Like they experience less jealous, like less
like possessiveness.
Possessiveness. Yes, yes. Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I think nomadic life, the most important of nomadic life is that life is fragile. So except life, everything else should be just a bit secondary, not so much in the center of the topic. They are important, but they're not as important as life. Yeah. And if today the weather is good, wolves have not come to attack the sheep, and the water is clean, and the ice is not so thick that I cannot walk on it, then it's all good.
Mm.
Yeah. The animals are healthy, and all the animals have eaten good quality grass. Yeah.
Mm.
And also the nature that you're exposed to is very wide, like wide landscape, wide sky, very majestic mountains. I think this kind of external scenery also affects the way how your mind functions. If you're always in very closed, non-stimulating, kind of very pale space, it can damage, I think, brain function and mental loop. Yeah.
Now you spend a lot of time singing and offering mantra and doing healing sessions around mantra and Tibetan medicine. So where does mantra fit into Tibetan medicine?
Simply speaking, Tibetan medicine is depicted, I mean, the word that we use to depict Tibetan medicine is very essential. So we call it Sowa Rigpa. Sowa means nourishment. Rigpa is like science or wisdom. So it's the wisdom of nourishment. So what we nourish the body and the mind. And we nourish the connection between the body and mind. In order to provide this nourishment, Tibetan medicine or Sowa Rigpa provides 5 healing methods. So we have a big chunk that talks about dietary suggestions, diet, lifestyle being the second, and herbal formulas being the third. I mean, herbal formula not meaning everything's herbal. Some 7% is based on herb, but there are 20-30% that involves minerals as well as animal body parts. Then we have the fourth external therapies, such as massage in Tibetan would call, and horme, stick therapy, bloodletting, la massage. So there's a like whole collection of external therapies in different styles. And then the fifth healing method is called spiritual healing method. And the spiritual healing has 3 kind of divisions. First is aiming on body. So we have different healing yogas. So, I mean, Indian yogas are very widely spreaded, but in fact, Tibetans also have their own healing tradition of healing yogas. Some healing yogas are very easy. They're known as the kind of the preliminary practice of yoga or saltukur. So one most important healing yoga in the medical tradition is called nejang chenmo. And then for the speech, for the energy, then we use mantra for the healing purpose fits in this category. And then we have the third division, which focuses on mind. It is done through certain type of visualizations, including the one that I spoke earlier, this light. You visualize the emotion or the emotions as light is a part of this healing meditation as well. So these 3 doors we call body, speech, and mind, they have their own kind of antidotes or methods to be balanced. And we believe in Tibetan medicine that our body is made of 5 elements, space as the mother, and 4 kids, water, earth, fire, and wind. And these 5 elements are different from the Chinese medicine 5 elements. The Chinese medicine 5 elements are recognized as the external 5 elements, and the Tibetan 5 elements are recognized as inner 5 elements. So when these 5 elements are in balance, then our mind is relatively clear, happy, and our body also feels no pain and discomfort. And in order to have this balance, our body and mind should have a good relation with each other. They should communicate and they should know how to communicate with each other. And then there is a bridge between this communication, and that's so-called energy or so-called speech in this category. And sometimes these translations can be very different from what it actually entails. But let's say that this so-called energy or speech, they're 2 different words, but they both essentially mean 2 things in practical terms. One, breathing. The other is syllables, sound. So one is without sound, breathing, silence, and the other is with sound. So with sound, you can chant certain syllables, you can chant mantras, you can also produce just the vowels. For example, the vowels a, e, o, u, or the 5 vowels of Tibetan or English language as well, like it's the same vowels. So these essential vowels are also the most common like sound practice. Yeah, musicians are also very familiar with this. Yeah, they train. Musical training includes the vowel singing, and actually energy is also there. So the interesting part is like when you do these mantra singing or the syllable sound making, or in silence, you just breathe. In these sound or without sound, silent procedures, your mind and your body are feeling each other. This is number one, because you are able to slow down time. Your perception of time can be slowed down. And in this extended experience of time, you're able to notice more. Your mind is noticing more of what's going on in the body. Your body is also noticing more what's going into the mind, and they're communicating. So as they communicate more, then you learn how to let them communicate better. So Sowa Rigpa, the previous, for example, diet and lifestyle, external therapies like these are helping to improve the communication of body and mind. The energy part, the spiritual healing is working with a more refined existence of our body. Like if we think about our existence, we firstly imply the physical existence, and that would be more material, more tangible, like easier to be trusted in our current logic. But actually, our body has a much more refined existence. It has the energy body as well as the light body. Like the physical body is one part. It is more externalized, more palpable. And then there's energy part, which can be a very strong influence onto our body. But if we intervene within time, we are able to prevent illnesses or sicknesses to become a part of the corpo, like to be manifested on the physical level.
shude shude, Yakmo shude shude, Kamho shude shude, Ramho shude shude, Lamho shude shude.